Now, as leaders met in Cornwall this weekend, there's been a push to help low and middle-income countries vaccinate their populations with pledges of up to 1 billion COVID vaccines to be provided by the G7 to these poorer countries. Well, let's talk to Fergus Drake, who's Chief Executive of Crown Agents, a company helping to distribute COVID vaccines across the world. Good to see you this morning. Now, clearly, getting those vaccines themselves is important. But it's no good just providing a company like you with hundreds of millions of doses, is it? Because presumably the logistics here are particularly difficult.
That's right. These recent vaccine pledges could be the G7's biggest success since its inception in 1975, or its biggest missed opportunity, because what we don't want to see is millions of vaccines going to waste because the infrastructure and the planning hasn't been able to happen on the ground over the next critical few months. It's really important, as you say, to know that a vaccine is only half the story. Every vaccine needs the right syringe. Every syringe needs a fully trained community health worker to administer it. Those health workers need PPE, and above all, there needs to be a willing arm at the end of that chain to receive the vaccine.
Yeah, I mean, look, even on the basics, I know obviously President Biden's pledged, hundreds of millions of doses of the Pfizer vaccine. Now, for a lot of these poorer countries, that's a cold storage problem, isn't it? For a lot of them, even just to store that vaccine for any length of time.
That's right. So there are four key issues. The first is that these vaccines need to arrive quickly and they need to have a long shelf life. And also they can't arrive all at once, because if there's millions that arrive in a country like South Sudan, then the infrastructure simply can't cope. And it would be a bit like taking a drink of water through a fire hose. Secondly, that's that cold chain infrastructure that you talked about. Pfizer needs to be passed on at kind of -70 to -80 degrees. And so when it arrives in country, it needs to go from a capital city to a regional centre to local primary healthcare units, and it needs to stay within that cold chain. Finally, you need the health workers. They need to have training, but they also need the specific medical equipment. So not only personal protective equipment, but the Pfizer vaccine has its own syringe, and they have been in short supply over the last few months. And then, a bit like the UK, you need pro-vaccine messages. You need to use social media. You need to use local opinion formers like we did so successfully over the last year to ensure that many people are turning up at these primary healthcare units to take these jabs when they arrive.
So when you outline it like that, it does seem to be actually a huge, astronomical problem in terms of how to get these jabs out, and they never mind getting the arms to put them in, the willing arms to put them in. How long a process is this going to be? We're not just going to be able to get this out in the next 12 months, are we?
Well, it is going to take some time, but there is a window of opportunity now. If we get the funding right, we can have everyone standing by. So I like to use the analogy of a Formula One pit stop. When you've got everyone trained, a car arrives, it can be refueled and all four tyres changed in under 3 seconds. That's what we need to happen. When these vaccines arrive on ground, people like the Ministry of Health, national governments, organisations like Gavi, UNICEF, ourselves, faith-based organisations, charities need to be standing by to ensure that we have one overall cold chain, we have the right people who've been trained up, and then we can really crack on with getting this done over the next 12, 18 months.
I mean, are you confident that can happen, Fergus?
I think it's going to be an absolutely unprecedented feat, but I am optimistic with the pledges that have happened, but the pledges aren't enough. There needs to be the funding that sits around that. There needs to be organisations with specific skills who are working alongside the global organisations to ensure that we don't get any countries left behind, because my overall concern is that COVID could become the next residual pandemic. So what I mean by that is HIV/AIDS still kills over 700,000 people every year. But we don't talk about that in Western societies. The kind of narrative has moved on. We can't have that becoming the overall endpoint of COVID going forward.
Yeah, look, it's really good to talk to you this morning, Fergus. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.